Well, well, well. What a scene in Ireland for the Fighting Irish. We recap Navy and we look ahead to Eddie George's led Tennessee State on this episode of Inside the Irish. As stated in the open, Notre Dame had to go in week 0 all the way out to Dublin, Ireland, take on the Navy midshipmen. And it didn't turn out so well for the midshipmen. I didn't get to watch much of this game. It looks like I didn't miss very much. It seems like Navy didn't do very much. What were your thoughts and what were your takeaways?
This is exactly what you want to see if you're a Notre Dame fan. No, like letting the other team hang in it. Just hammer in the nail, and get the win, and make your new quarterback look like a Heisman contender in the first game, and actually have your defense stop the other team, which another team over there on the West Coast had a little trouble doing. So yeah, just a great day to be a Notre Dame fan, and great day for the team, and they kind of partied after the game. And they looked like they had fun, so happy for them.
Speaking of quarterback, it seemed like, or not seemed, it was shocking to me just how good of a game Sam Hartman had in his first game, considering it's not a, simple team that we're supposed to drag through the mud. It was Navy, which usually is complicated for Notre Dame, which is why I said 31-27 or whatever I said last week. He was perfect, so to speak. I think he did have some incomplete passes, but
a couple of them were drops too.
But when I say, perfect, his touchdown to interception ratio was 4-0. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to talk about perfect, that's where I would, as a guy who loves quarterbacks, that's where I would want my quarterback to be the most successful. Mm-hmm. I don't care about, if his receiver would have actually gripped the ball at his chest, he would have been 100% on passing. Well, he could be, because here's the thing, he could be 100% on passing, but if he's got a 2 touchdown, 3 or 4 interception ratio, it doesn't look as good as it would if you have the drops and you have more touchdowns than interceptions. And in this case, no interceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the one knock that some people had on Sam Hartman. Like, so a couple games he had some bad interceptions, but not in this one. So far, so good.
So where were you the most pleased with what you saw on the team?
The linebackers. Last year, the linebackers just weren't good. I mean, they got exposed against USC, as they just could not. Like, a lot of the times, it just seemed like the linebackers didn't know what they were doing, that they weren't coached enough well. And Al Golden was the defensive coordinator, so I'm like, maybe he isn't doing enough with coaching the linebackers. But this year, we got Max Bullock, a GA, who's at Alabama. So, like, this guy isn't just a GA to, like, sit down and take notes. This is a guy that's actually going to coach the players. And I think his coaching really showed that the linebackers look much more disciplined and much more effective this season.
Do you feel comfortable with where the offense is, considering you had Tyler Buckner leave and Tommy Reese leave? Do you think that, you lost a decent piece in Buckner and Reese, but it is just one game, so we don't want to overreact to it, but do you feel like even with those losses that you've made up more than enough for what you lost with bringing in Hartman and having the new OC?
I think so. I still think there's a bit of a question mark with Jared Parker as he like. We need to see him against the good teams that we're going to play this season, Ohio State and Clemson. Those are going to be two good defenses, and USC might improve. We'll see, but we need to see how he does against those teams because that's where he'll really make his money. But he did look good against Navy, but there's still time will tell. And with Sam Harmon, clear upgrade over Tyler Buckner, and it showed.
Do you think there's a difference between the way the offense ran with Buckner and the way it runs with Hartman? And how big of a difference from what we've seen so far is the difference to you?
Well, the use of the receivers. The receivers improved with Chancey Stuckey, the new wide receivers coach, as they looked much better. But Drew Pine was just too small, and he couldn't get the ball. He couldn't see that they were open. And Tyler Buckner, I mean, he did see when they were open sometimes, but he also threw boneheaded interceptions. So, and I'm like, especially the pick six against South Carolina, I'm like, what are you doing? But with Sam, I mean, Sam was just hitting them all. Now, I do wish there was some use of the tight ends, as the tight ends were not thrown to once. They blocked well, but they weren't thrown to once. So that's one thing I would like to see in the Tennessee State game, just to see what they can do when they get the ball.
What do you think after watching the game against Navy? Where do you think Notre Dame's weaknesses still are?
Still at the second safety.
Still at the what?
Second. So our first our first safety, Xavier Watts, is solid. I think he's good. DJ Brown looked bad. Like even against Navy, he looked bad. So he has to play better. And the defensive ends still weren't as great as I would like them to be. They did look a bit improved, but I want to see a little more of that. I want to see them look better against NC State and Tennessee State. But I do think that we should maybe see Ramon Henderson get some more playing time, because DJ Brown, although he's a leader of that group, like I see him in interviews and stuff, like he seems like a good leader, but he's trying to do the right thing. He just isn't talented enough to do what he wants to do, and that's kind of Chris O'Leary's fault. But we'll see. We'll see if he can improve it.
I was going to say, do you think it's more of a growth problem, or is it more of a talent issue?
He hasn't been as great of a recruiter as some of the guys that Marcus brought in. So I do think that he's got to do better on the trail. And he got Bronte Johnson, and he looks like he could be good for 2024, but he was in state. I mean, those are like, if you don't get those guys, you should immediately be fired. So, yeah.
How do you, because it seems like you're more, I mean, it sounds overall like you're pleased with the performance.
One thing I'm not so pleased about is Tobias Merriweather was supposed to be our best receiver. He had a drop, and he didn't actually get any catches. Jaden Greathouse, who's like a freshman, and we're like, okay, this guy could break out this year. He immediately broke out, so that's good. But if we can get Tobias to like get some get some catches and get some yards in the next few games before Ohio State, get his confidence up, that would be big. If we could have both Greathouse and Merriweather looking like stars. But that's one thing that makes me nervous, is like the separation wasn't great on the receivers against Navy, and you're going to need more of that, some separation to make more big plays.
Do you feel like the next couple of games before Ohio State are in Notre Dame's favor so that they can tweak out the issues at least somewhat and be overall more rounded off and better prepared for Ohio State? Because I mean, to kind of your point from before, Ohio State last year was at the beginning of the year, so there was no like warm up and, you know, hey, we got Ohio State coming up next week or in a couple weeks, so we got to, you know, fine tune everything so that we're good to go for Ohio State.
I think that'll be the NC State game. I think will help with that a lot, because NC State's actually a decent team. Like they'll probably make a decent bowl. I mean, Central Michigan's a bad MAC team. They're going to be playing them after NC State, and then Tennessee State's a bad FCS team. So, But I think the NC State game will help more than anything else. But, I mean, Ohio State only has Indiana. I mean, no offense to our friend Jeffrey, but Indiana is not a good team. I mean, they're going to be the Buckeyes' stiffest test before the Irish. So I do think that plays in Notre Dame's favor a bit.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how much, but I think it helps a little bit that Notre Dame gets to play a better team than Ohio State would play.
Oh, but see, here's the thing on that part. I would feel like playing Western Kentucky next week does kind of help Ohio State's defense in the sense of Bailey Zappi last year put up Joe Burrow-esque numbers at Western Kentucky. So they run a really good offense, and I think the defense may get tested at least for a quarter or so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any final thoughts on the Navy game?
Also, the kicker missed a field goal. I mean, he went 0 for 1, but I'm like, come on, man. Like, I do not want to be stressing over a kicker. Like, I mean, I know how I mean, I even consider this, but even you, like, you were stressed out about the kicker in the Georgia game too. So, like, I just, like, can we get the kicker to be automatic? Like, can we get him to be more like a Justin Tucker and less of a whoever your guys' kicker last year was?
Yeah.
So that just stressed me out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't like issues at the kicker position.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and play this ad, and then we're gonna jump into Tennessee State.
In a world full of fakes, how to avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
Again to eBay, our sponsor. Link is in the description below. Use the link at checkout, and hopefully you get a discount. So week 1, aka game 2 for Notre Dame, you have the Eddie George led Tennessee State Tigers, I believe, coming in to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is playing their first ever FCS school, and I think now personally I don't see it happening, but if Notre Dame comes into this game like they came into Marshall last year, you could have some problems because it could be App State, Michigan-esque.
I mean, I'll say the Marshall game was more because, like, they were down in the dumps about losing the Ohio State game, and they're like, oh, I don't want to play football. I'm just depressed about losing to Ohio State. So I think it was more of that. Like, they're coming into this game with confidence, so I don't think it'll be much of an issue.
I mean, as we discussed in the last segment, obviously the offense looks different and way better than it did last year. And I think, especially with the Marshall game, all credit to Charles Huff, coach down there at Huntington, West Virginia. I think, like you said, it was more of Marshall knew they had to step up and rise up to the challenge. They came to play, and Notre Dame was just like, I don't want to be here this week.
Yeah.
Not to try to take anything away from it, but
not to take anything away from the herd.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on the game itself for this week?
I mean, I'm happy we're playing an HBCU. I just wish there was a better football team because I mean they went 4-7 in the FCS last year. I mean, I'm like, could we at least play Jackson State? Like, I want to play a better team. But yeah, it'll be a good way to, like, empty the bench and see what we got in the future too, because I'm sure Kenny Minchie will play. I'm sure Jaden Osbury, all those big recruits that haven't played yet. Christian Gray, he's another big recruit that hasn't played yet, so it'll be interesting to see how those guys do if they get some action. But I mean, I don't know. Like Tennessee State, like even for their FCS level, they had a terrible offensive line. So our D line, like the D end's better feast. Like I'm sure the interior D linemen played pretty well. They'll feast too. But yeah, good confidence building for those guys.
What when you look at Tennessee State, what concerns you as far as what? I mean, I know it's a stupid question because it's like, ain't nothing to worry about. What worries you? Kind of trying to hold them, from scoring and kind of limit their success. And I guess just kind of in general, like as the season progresses too.
Well, they have two guys on defense that look good, Terrell Allen and Josh Green. And these guys are like, hey, if we perform against Notre Dame, maybe we can get drafted. Maybe we can sneak in there, be a late-round draft pick, and make a team. So these guys are, and maybe some other guys too that I haven't heard as much about. These guys this is their chance to make a statement, to show that, hey, we belong on the field with these guys. Our team might not be as good as them, but we're just as good as them. We're just as good as players on their team. We deserve to get some NFL draft consideration. So that's what I'm kind of worried about, is like those guys like kind of trying to take over the game for their team.
Matchup wise, what matchup would be most interesting to pay attention to on both sides of the ball?
Well, one matchup would be, I don't know, just Sam Hartman. Like, can he do it again? Like, can he look as good as he did last week? Like, I don't know. I just love watching a good Notre Dame quarterback. Like, we haven't had a great Notre Dame quarterback since, I guess, Jimmy Clausen was pretty good. Although he was good at Notre Dame. It was their defense was terrible with Jimmy. I mean, he wasn't that good, but he was better than any of the Kelly quarterbacks. And then Brady Quinn was just a Lord and Savior. We love Brady Quinn. Did you see what Brady said this week? Mm-mm. He said, "Oh, I love Brady, man." He's like, "This is the best Notre Dame team I've ever seen." He said that after the Navy game. He actually out and said that on his radio show. He's like, "Guys, I think this is the best Notre Dame team I've seen."
Well, I mean, I hope that statement doesn't age poorly.
It could, but I don't know, man. I'm like, Brady, Brady, this is one game, Brady. After one game, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, Brady, I'm like, was Brady old enough to watch the 93 team? Because that team was really good, too. I mean, I think he was too young for 88, but the 93 team was really good.
Well, I mean, you say Jimmy Clausen, but I could arguably say probably Brady Quinn was the last
Brady Quinn.
Great quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I was just too young to watch Brady Quinn, really.
Oh, me too. I was like, I don't know, 10 or something.
Yeah. I mean, Brady Quinn did have some insane throws to win games or make the USC game close, 2005.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's a dark horse, but I think if Hartman plays the way he's been playing, and I know, again, we're trying to not overreact because it is one game and it is the worst Navy we've seen in a long time. But Hartman, if you ask me, because it looks like Notre Dame has the essentials needed, Hartman could potentially realistically be a Heisman finalist. Or at least
that's the hope.
In the race.
I mean, Jimmy Clausen was. So, like, if Jimmy was a finalist in 2009, I think Brady should be Sam should be a finalist this year. Yeah.
All right. Well, want to go ahead and break it down for us and give us your pick for the week?
I'll go ND. I mean, I don't know how long the starters will play and how good the freshmen will look if they get playing time in the third quarter. So I'll go 42-3. I'll just go same scores this week.
That is a big thing that makes it hard to do shows like this during weeks like this. Obviously, I think Notre Dame is going to run away with it. I think Notre Dame is set up, in my opinion, not to somehow get out of doing a show next week, because we'll do it next week if we have time. I think Notre Dame is set up to be undefeated heading into Ohio State. So obviously I'm going to go with Notre Dame on this one. And I think Notre Dame, like you said, depending on how long the starters play, I think Notre Dame easily puts up 42 again. I think Notre Dame allows Tennessee State. I think Notre Dame is going to be like a lion or a tiger in this game and just kind of toy with their food. And hopefully they just don't do it for too long. I think it's going to be 42-17 Notre Dame.
All right.
Tennessee State's – I haven't looked myself to keep track of Tennessee State. That's kind of why you're on. But I think, they may have players capable enough to put up a touchdown or two, plus third stringers against first stringers, bound to score. Well, all right. That's another edition of Inside the Irish. Hope to see everybody back here next week, and go Irish. Oh my God, I just threw up. I'm kidding. We'll see y'all next week. Have a good week.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.